You can skip to 1409 mark for when I actually show and explain the build. So just pause the video as I hover over like on my shotgun here and everything. I'll show every single thing I'm using so you can see exactly what it is while I just take a few minutes here and after to explain it. So I mean, first off, this is a minion build that you can, if you start like on UVH1 level 30 after completing some other character, I actually would say Vex is probably, I mean, she is one of the best ones to level up from level 1, but she probably is the best one to level up at 30 when you're allowed to, because you can literally make a version of this build right out the gate with infinite minions immediately and never have an issue with anything. As because you'll see in the skill tree, the key is of course, the dark compact, whatever you call it, dark pack capstone, I mean, which lets you have 2 augments and gives you an ability to maintain your minions. And then you can get an extra charge of Dead Ringer right next to that one. So you can get 4 charges instead of 3. And then you can pick up 2 augments, Coven and then Hellish Harvest, both of which help your Reapers at least stay alive forever, because Coven gives them health regen, and then Hellish Harvest lets them regen health off melee hits. So yeah, that combo alone will let you have infinite Reapers out the gate with Vex. However, this build is meant to maintain Reapers and still be gaining charge. Like, you can do that build, but you won't be like gaining back your charges regularly in order to maintain, in order to keep them up, keep 3 out in the combat constantly. You have to invest more into cooldown rates, action skill cooldown rates, and rep kits to help with that in order to actually recharge your minions while you're also keeping 3 out constantly, which I like to do because it's good. It lets you switch it up, because this build, if you pay attention, it's good with Reapers, but is also really good with Spectres, which I like because Spectres are also OP in certain situations. Reapers are usually better than Spectres, but Spectres, as you see in my last video I just did, they are like the ultimate flying enemy killer. Like, you set out 3 Spectres out the gate and you just watch the bats drop from the sky like flies, including elite ones, including vile elite ones I've seen before. Like, they just shred them, because of course they have perfect accuracy as AI companions. Also, when you spawn 3 of them, so they don't get health regen, that's a problem, but they do get crit hit chance. So you spawn 3 of them out the gate, that's 30% crit hit chance to all 3 of them for those first few seconds, so that they're just shredding enemies constantly. And see, what I do is I spawn 3 of them, right? Then I wait a few seconds, because usually they're at least tanky enough to survive a few hits, and their health drain during that time. After like a 5 or 6 seconds, that's when I'll activate Dark Pact, whatever it's called, the ability that makes them restore their health and become immune to damage for 12 seconds. So, like, the first like 20-ish seconds, you can maintain your 3 Spectres easily on this build. After that, that's when I have to start cycling 1 Reaper at a time. So then I can't maintain 3 Spectres infinitely. But see, at that point, I would have already gotten about 2 of my minion charges back because of the cooldown rate buffs I'm having on this build. So, I spawn 3 Spectres. I do that cycle I just mentioned, wait a little bit before I do anything, then use my ability to make them invincible for another few seconds, while I'm also using my rep kits to get my cooldown back. By that point, I have like 3 charges again on minions usually. And then that's when I spawn just 1 Reaper, which removes 1 of the Spectres, but I still got 2 Spectres. And then 1 Reaper gives the other 2 Spectres health regen so that they're able to stay out in combat too. And then the Reaper, for what it's worth, can also attack flying enemies. It's just not as good because he has to hover up to them, and it's a lot more annoying sometimes. But he at least can do something as well to them. And then I'll wait another few seconds, probably spawn a 2nd Reaper, and then just have 1 Spectre on the field. But then eventually I will spawn another Spectre and then a Reaper with it once I get Dark Pact ready again. And you can pretty much cycle between Reapers and Spectres infinitely too on this build, which I think is very good because it's really hard to maintain Spectres constantly because they don't get any sort of health regen at all. So in order to maintain Spectres a lot more, you have to invest and a lot more action skill cooldown. And I like it because I can switch it up. I'm pretty much never caught with my pants down. I almost always am ready to activate minions, hence being a minion build. But what you see with our build, like melee damage increases minion damage or Reaper damage, just so you know, just like gun damage and gunfire rate affects the Spectres too. And so we stack both of those on this build, as well as action skill damage, which buffs the Spectres just as much as it buffs the Reapers. But when you combine all that, you see we are more Reaper focused, but we have a huge buff to Spectres still. Like, our Spectres are not weak at all. And then we go action skill cooldown so that we can maintain both a lot better too. And so that combination, that synergy of like action skill cooldown now with caffeine, together with melee damage, action skill damage, but then also some gun damage on the side too and stuff like that, helps us. And then just a raw damage buff on our Teen Witch mod you saw that affects all damage. So all that combined is what lets this be a much more balanced minion build, which I really like. Also, like, we don't really have to fight ever. I just fight here because I can. Also, like, when you're fighting bosses in particular, that's when you definitely want to fight, because you're the only one who can activate the Groundbreaker bonus damage, which is the key to destroying bosses and elites a lot quicker on this build. So it's not like you don't want to fight. But my point is, like, I mean, I technically could have my minions kill any boss in this game and be fine, because they'd be keeping me alive the whole time. It would just take forever. But then, especially in mobbing, it's like, dude, especially if I'm like in co-op and I'm like a guest, I'm having server lag issues. This build is like one of the best builds in the game for co-op, frankly, because you're still going to be mobbing fine with friends. Your Reapers will be doing most of the mobbing anyway without any help, as long as you just keep maintaining them. And then they're not affected by lag once you just get them out and keep them out. So, you know, they're always going to be going around hitting enemies, whether you can or not. And then they're distractions from your teammates as well as yourself, so they help keep the team alive too because of that with their taunt ability. And yeah, it's like this is like perfect with teams, honestly. Like, this is one of the probably the best, if not one of the best, I mean, if not the best, then definitely one of the best co-op based builds in the game. But as you see here, I'm soloing and it's still awesome, because I could just put my gun down and just not do anything at all. I may at least toss my grenades. If you notice, just to talk about my grenades, I'm using like the Vampiric Swarm grenades. They don't do a lot of damage, but the thing is, they spread around the field constantly. They all home, and that lets me get lifesteal back a lot more. That's the other thing to mention about this build. This is a tank build too, and it is a super tank build. Like, I am pretty much invincible no matter what. There's a few boss fights, if I'm not getting my Reapers hitting things and stuff like that, might happen occasionally, where I can start to take a lot of damage suddenly and have to be a little careful. But for the most part, which is also why I've said before, like, both my Aean builds now that I have in my previous videos, I mean, my Ordnance one for sure, but even my Melee Onslaughter one now, I'd say now is probably even tankier than this Vex build is. Like Aean is still the king of tanking in this game, but Vex Minion gets very close and is a great, if you like doing a tank build as I do, but you want to play other vaults, other vault hunters, then the Vex Minion is the perfect one for you, because you'll still be tanky, and also just the fact you'll be taking less damage just because of your minions, but also the fact is that once you get that class mod for lifesteal, well, then you also become tanky too. So then you're just pretty much invincible with your own lifesteal combined with your minions. And it's a very casual and fun build too. So yeah, I definitely recommend this build if you like being a tank like I do. But I wouldn't say it's the tankiest. There's people out there who've tried to claim that Vex Minion's tankier than Aean, and to them I just say, well, you haven't seen my Aean builds. Aean is the king. He will always be the king at tanking in this game. He's not the king at boss killing necessarily, although his Ordnance build gets very close. I mean, his Ordnance build is just, I've seen, there's some videos out there, a lot of, I don't know what, like the popular YouTube influencers, that they always rate Aean's Ordnance build in A tier rather than S tier. Like, Aean is always the one who they always rate as the lowest Vault Hunter, and he always is beneath Vex, Harlow, and Rafa, in the sense that he doesn't even get one build that is an S tier for any of their rankings, whereas all three of the other Vault Hunters always do. And I'm like, what are you talking? They always notice Aemon's Ordnance build and say it's OP, but they put it in A tier. I'm like, I don't understand you. Like, I understand maybe that Aemon's Ordnance build may not kill the bosses quite as quickly as the other S tier builds of the Vault Hunters, but I mean, how quick is quick at this point? So my Ordnance build Aeon can kill the second phase of the Timekeeper, which is on UVH5 the tankiest boss in the game, or I think definitely one of the tankiest bosses in the game, one of the biggest bullet sponges in the game, the second phase of the Timekeeper boss. On UVH5, he can end him in 15 seconds, and he has no setup required either. He doesn't use an amp rep kit. He doesn't use anything. He just starts the fight, immediately starts shooting with his infinite rocket launcher, doesn't do anything else, and he still kills him in 15 seconds. How can you say, like, I understand you can do another S tier build that kills him in, like, 5 seconds when you do your little setup at the outset, and then you end him almost in a blink of an eye. Fine, okay. You could say, oh, it's technically triple times faster. Like, oh man, just shut up already. Like, what is the difference at that point anymore? You're spending way more time in load screens and stuff like that for those 10 extra seconds you bought yourself to mean anything at all on your Harlow or your Rafa or anything like that. So I kind of disagree. It's like, it doesn't really mean much. But you know what his Ordnance build has that even those ones don't have? Is that it's way tankier. Like, he's able to still maintain a total invincibility mode, the likes of which they still can't compare. Like, you can get kind of tanky on some of those other S tier builds out there for boss killing on the other Vault Hunters, but it's still nothing comparable to Aeon, and Aeon can still get insane damage on his Ordnance. So you can end the boss in a few seconds, you can like, be one of the best mobbers too in the game, and you are the tankiest Vault Hunter, period, too, on top of it. And I mean period. You can get infinite Scourge that gives you literally infinite damage immunity. Not damage mitigation, damage immunity for infinite amount of times. If you go like more of the red tree, you can like you can spam his fort skill and get like the few seconds of invulnerability after using a fort skill, but then you're able to just use your fort skill over and over again and keep getting that too, as well as the regen from Onslaught. Like, I don't get it. I can maybe understand rating Aeon still a little lower than the others because maybe he doesn't have, because I will say his Ordnance build is kind of like his only one that would be an S tier. But still, to say that he doesn't have an S tier build that is at least equal, if not better, than the other Vault Hunter S tier builds out there, I don't know what you're talking about. Aeon's definitely up there with that build at least. It's not A tier, it's S tier. Anyway, I went on obviously a tangent then. By the way, yeah, my previous videos were Aeon. He's my main, so check those out too. But let me be done fine. I've been ranting too much suddenly about Aeon. That's what I do. I go off on tangents. But to swivel back to this Vex build again, even though I kind of already explained most of the gist of it. It's like, yeah, well, obviously you need the Teen Witch mod to get the tankiness. That's a necessity. The armor we use is just to get... I don't see much of a need for the power play shield, even though you could use that to get even more fire rate, potentially more damage. But we don't really rely on fire rate hardly at all because of our shotguns and just between melee hits and our Reaper damage, giving our Groundbreaker bonus melee too. Like, and then tossing our grenade every few seconds. We don't really have much time to capitalize off fire rate like other other builds. So I don't really see the power. I mean, the movement speed would be nice, I grant you, but if that's the only thing it's got going for it, then it doesn't really have much going for it. I guess the ammo is second. You can maybe have like almost an infinite Soothsayer shotgun. But what good is that? Because the Soothsayer is only good against flesh enemies. And even though that's the most common enemy in the game, there's still lots of other enemies, like order enemies, I'm never using the Soothsayer on. But on that note, if you noticed, we make sure to use all 4 elements. So the Soothsayer shotgun is just perfect for the incendiary damage with the melee hits. I love using shotguns because they make the most sense when we're meleeing and they still do good close range damage, but also the animation. They make the melee animation still quick. So we're actually able to melee faster using shotguns. And when I try to use like assault rifles, a lot of assault rifles in this game have an annoying longer animation between melee hits where you're like cocking the gun back and it literally slows your DPS. There's no other way to describe it. The animation time affects your DPS on melee, and some guns switching back to them after a melee hit takes so long in the animation phase that you're literally losing melee damage between hits. So far every shotgun I've used doesn't have that annoyance attached to it. So yeah, we use the Soothsayer for flesh, we use Adoration for corrosive, just to be able to, it's just so that our melee and our Reapers can become corrosive on demand. So if we're dealing with a pure yellow enemy, that's when we use it. It's rare, but it happens. Same with using the Plasma Coil with Shock. There's a few bosses like Origo in this game that are just pure shield. So we use that to go pure blue on our minions, specters, and our own melee damage because of that. And then everything else, we just use kinetic. Order enemies, they have too many different bars on their health, too many different things going on for them that it doesn't make any, like, you can't waste time switching between different elements. It's just a waste of your time. Just go full kinetic at that point. So, of course, we always make sure we got just kinetic, the most reliable status, of course, in the game. Also, for dealing with elemental eaters, incendiary elemental eaters are the worst because of reburninations in our skill tree that you saw. Our Reapers always do fire damage. So whenever I encounter those annoying enemies, what I do, that's another reason why we go cooldown build and we switch to Specters. Specters don't activate that, so what I usually do is I'll get rid of my Reapers and send out a bunch of Specters in front of the elemental like elite enemy so that they can immediately end him really quickly, and then I go back to my Reapers. And again, having, now with Caffeine Passive 2, bonus cooldown rate, that lets us do that quicker so that we can handle our biggest weakness as well by going like cooldown reduction rate buffs on our build. Anyway, I won't harp anymore about the build. The basics are pretty obvious, and I've been ranting too long, clearly.